Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? I blew my car's tire and my friend came in to bail me out. We're both straight dudes and forgot it was Valentine's. Decided to have dinner and both were coming from important meetings, so had suits on. We didn't catch on until the end on how the entire wait staff thought we were just the cutest gay couple. I served at a Japanese hibachi restaurant and once had a couple come in. The dude dumps her after the meal. She then gets up and throws up a trail probably a good 20 feet as she runs to the bathroom. The dude got up and left the girl and I was left to clean the mess. There was a note in our reservations that it was an engagement. They wanted champagne, a specific seat, bunch of other stuff. The server comes up to the table with something like, "So I read we're celebrating an engagement. Congratulations." Confusion from the woman. Glaring from the guy. He hadn't proposed yet. She ruined it. These two were on a date and the guy went to go use the bathroom. The girl just up and leaves after he went to the restroom. When the guy came back, he sat around for a while until asking his waitress where she went. She replied with saying that she left. The guy then asked the waitress if she would go on a date with him. The waitress said no. They came in at lunch the day after. So it was pretty empty, but it was still for a Valentine's Day date. They were both pretty nice at the beginning. The guy asked for a picture and whatnot. As the meal went on, the dude got progressively drunker and by the time I brought the check out, the woman was gone. When the dude gave me his card, he said, "I'll give you a bit of advice. If you're taking a girl out to break up with her, do it at a McDonald's and not an expensive restaurant." Not a waiter. But in my strip club bouncer days, we had one of our regulars get suited up and bring flowers in one V-Day to try and woo one of the dancers. It did not work. Pro tip. If every time you'll hang out it involves you giving her money, she is not into you. He proposed. She said no. He cried and tried to change her mind for 20 minutes while she sat there stony faced. She finally got up and walked out. He paid and left in tears. I was a delivery driver for a fruit bouquet company and I had 2 arrangements from the same guy. Routes were made for me and the truck was loaded, so there was no way I could mess this up. Delivered both arrangements to the appropriate address. I headed back to the store to find the store owner and the guy who sent these in an argument. This idiot put the wrong name to the houses. And it was on the card with the arrangement, along with the phone numbers. So both women called each other and then called the guy. He tried to say it was my fault. Then the person who took the order. He ordered it online. All we did was import the order. I hate Valentine's Day because of that place, but man was that great. I had a Section 1 V-Day that had a marriage proposal, a 40th anniversary, and a breakup all at the same time. The breakup was the worst. The guy brought his high-class date a gift. A mini ceramic bear holding balloons. He presented it when I was at the table and she looked at it like it was a hot turd. I just knew this was not going to end well. She left at the end of the meal and must have said something because he stayed at the table for another 40 minutes. Head down and crying. I felt bad. He saw the celebrations going on at the other tables. Not a waiter, but I was a pastry chef at this big resort in Cape Cod. We got a special order from this guy who was coming in for his anniversary, Valentine's Day. He wanted his dessert to have "Will you marry me?" written on it so he could pop the question when it came out. He called ahead to the front and back kitchen. Even came in himself that morning to make sure it was good to go. The whole crew was behind him. We had cooks all night coming in to ask if it had happened yet. I wrote the inscription on the plate and dressed it to the nines with gold leaf and expensive chocolate. I'm taking a picture of the plate just before it's set to go out and notice our head waiter come in with a weird look on his face. He says plainly they don't need it. She broke up with him before the entrees hit the table. A guy did a backflip and asked a girl to be his Valentine. She declined. I walked up to him and asked if he was fine. He said it took him a week to perfect. I was eating in a fine dining establishment, Chili's, several years ago. In the next booth was a really young guy who had a big bunch of roses on the seat next to him. He kept looking at his watch, looking at the roses, and popping open a ring box for a peek at the ring. He did this for a half hour or so, then began calling and texting someone, presumably his girlfriend, over and over. As we were waiting for our check, he hands my wife the roses, mumbled something, and walked out. Poor guy. Edit. I don't consider Chili's a fine dining experience. My wife and I had done some shopping and stopped off for a burger and beer afterwards. Had a couple sign divorce papers and cry a bunch. A guy proposed to his girlfriend and she said no. The guy threw his arms up and ran out of the building. Later, while waiting for someone to pick her up, she told us it was completely out of the blue, because they'd only been dating for a few months. Another V-Day. The guy raised a huge fuss over the fact that we wouldn't serve liquor to his underage girlfriend. I'm certain you mean he threw up his hands momentarily in exasperation. A 16-year-old boy proposed to a 15-year-old girl with a cheap ring and the whipped cream of her dessert. She said yes. So romance isn't quite dead yet. Old man proposed to old woman. He tried to get off the chair to kneel, tripped and fell and I assume broke something since he couldn't get back up and we had to call an ambulance. My manager had to drive her teeth to the hospital separately because she had taken them out to eat her soup, Lord knows why, and left them on the table in the confusion. Edited to add. I don't know if she said yes. My manager didn't get to see them at the hospital. Only pass on her teeth to the nurse. Thank you kindly for the gold and silver though. Busboy on Las Vegas trip. An attempted proposal. Dude tries to set up sign with GF's friends for her to show up and see the ring near a fountain. Duck stole the ring. They found it 2 hours later as he dropped in the fountain. She still said yes. Free drinks were given. Back when I served food at one of those super touristy seafood restaurants. I worked a Valentine's Day double shift. For lunch, this younger couple came in celebrating their 1-year anniversary. I offer my congratulations and proceed to do my usual spiel before taking orders. The girl is looking more and more dismayed the longer I talk. Finally I get to the end and ask if there are any allergies. She looks directly at her boyfriend and states, "Yes, I'm allergic to fish and shellfish." Then looks over at me very sad. I made sure every aspect of her meal was fine for her. But it was that look of we've been dating a year and he still takes me to a restaurant that could kill me that really did it for me. Not my table. But back in my Olive Garden days. We had a man who looked to be in his mid-20s tap his empty wine glass with a fork to call for attention of the surrounding strangers. And get down on one knee with silver band in hand. And ask his girlfriend Day to accept this promise ring. She looked horrified start to finish. In college I waited tables and Valentine's Day was always a good one in terms of tips. I once saw a couple come in to eat. Halfway through the dinner the man's wife shows up to surprise the couple. The wife took the wine bottle and poured the remnants on the husband's head. Took off her ring and told the girlfriend she could have him. Had a man and woman sharing dessert and the man playfully put a bit of the ice cream on her nose. She then did the same and he did it back once more but with a different flavor of ice cream. She flipped out at him because you know I like chocolate the most, why would you waste it you idiot. In the end she stormed out cause the man couldn't comprehend how much she was blowing up the situation. TLDR. Anne put ice cream on woman's nose, she is fine with it the first time. The second time she rages and leaves. I was working as a waitress in a sushi restaurant and Valentine's Day was an all hands on deck shift. This guy I had just started seeing wanted to go out. But I told him that working in food service, you never get Valentine's Day off and we just have to celebrate the day after or the weekend after. Nope. He got so upset that he went and asked a different girl out. Came to the restaurant I worked at on V-Day and sat in my section. He then proceeded to spend the entire evening making a fool out of himself and making his date uncomfortable as he tried to make me jealous. Needless to say we didn't go out again. Ever. I set my hair on fire and spilled a full Stella on a lady. I work in a causal fine dining steakhouse. Luckily for me, the lady I spilled the Stella on was super understanding, and her husband said from across the table, well, now she has to take her pants off. Saru, that could have gone worse for me. Not really much of a disaster. But last year my work called me up. Hey buddy, we know you're single. Can you come in as an extra shift tonight? No. I have a date with your wife. Worked at a chain BBQ restaurant. Was a line cook but could see in the dining room. Had a lady and her kids, early teens, come in turn to be seated. She started to freak out. Crying. Yelling and left. Turns out the table in the corner was her husband and another lady in a date. Ex-barista here. Hope that is close enough. Some guy on Valentine Day came in and asked us to write on the cup, will you marry me? Full stop. It did not go well. She looked at the cup while he went down on one knee. She said nothing. Put the cup back down and just walked away shaking her head. He, on the other hand, got pissed and started to rant about how she should have gotten over him sleeping with her sister already. Full stop. Full stop. Full stop. We had to ask him to leave. Edit. Oh, I have a good story if you don't mind me sharing. Not on video. We had a guy come in and asked us to write, will you go to the prom with me? She said yes so happily. I think they ended up engaged 2 years later since we started to see rings on their fingers. They were lovely regulars and I wish them the best. IDK, but I'll find out Friday cause I work a f-king double. And it's Applebee's. Update. Sorry Reddit. I've been working a shit ton and haven't had a minute to update you guys. So basically, Valentine's Day at Applebee's wasn't much different than any other Friday night working there. But, I will say, a lot of people were stingy at FCK with their tips. And I mean a lot of people. Also, there was a couple who dined and dashed. And there was a dude who got stood up. Other than that, it was about as trashy as normal. Happy belated Valentine's Day everybody. Back to work I go. 2 failed marriage proposals on the same Valentine's Day. The first one simply said no, I can't do this, and walked out. The second one stared like a deer frozen in the headlights for an excruciating 30 seconds before muttering, let's talk about this later. They stayed for the rest of their 6-course V-Day special dinner, eating and making painful small talk. I was working at a corporate sports bar that specialized in chicken wings. V-Day, like most days, was insanely busy. As the evening winds down, someone calls in saying they're a professional food critic and demanded to speak to the manager. After a 15-minute call, the manager tells us the critic rated us a B and said the food was good, but the service sucked. He said he would leave that last part out of his review if we comped his meal and gave him vouchers for free meals in the future. But he refused over and over to say where he worked. Confused, the manager talked to the server, who confirmed that the guy ate alone, ran her around ragged while shamelessly hitting on her, and left 0 tip. He wrote his phone number on the tip line. Thirsty bitch wanted free food because the server didn't call him immediately for a date. Saw a couple have a full-on argument at a restaurant. I wasn't their server, but the table was directly in the center of the restaurant and they were certainly loud enough for everyone to hear. Removed. A girl that I worked with went to lunch on Valentine's Day at an expensive restaurant her boyfriend had gotten a reservation for. She got dressed up nice, was going on about how sure she was that he was going to propose. He broke up with her. A few years ago, I had finished my shift at a pub I was working at and sat at the bar with a drink. There were still a few couples sat in the restaurant, but the boss let me clock off early. I had a pint before leaving, and at a table nearby, it sounded like a proposal was about to happen. A few people went quiet listening in. Then, it happened. Guy. Hannah. Will you marry me? He was kneeled in front of his girlfriend. Her sat down. Girl. Hannah? Who the is Hannah? She yelled. Threw her drink at him and walked out. Guy paid and walked out. Looking very red. Take the Emily. Probably not the kind of story you're looking for. But one Valentine's Day at my restaurant we got totally slammed and the kitchen started melting down. In the middle of dinner service the head chef freaked out. Threw a side of salmon at one of the line cooks and walked out. Someone showing up for a date and you both realize about 30 minutes and she ain't coming. Drinks on me, buddy. I was hosting at a really busy brunch place and Valentine's Day was one of our busiest days. We had a full waitlist with tons of people in the lobby when this dude walks on with this huge teddy bear and a bouquet of roses. He said he wanted to drop them off for my co-worker so I'll let her know he was there, but understandably she was running around so it took a bit. While waiting, a bunch of folks waiting for tables complimented him on how sweet he was to do that for his girlfriend and how jealous they were. It was kind of cute. When my co-worker finally was able to come up front there was a lot of awe and such. Again. We were slammed so she ran back after taking the items and it was back to work for all of us. When it died down, I asked her how long she was dating her boyfriend for and she replied, "He's not my boyfriend. He was the salesman where I just bought my car and I think he got my workplace from the paperwork." That was pretty f***ing disturbing. Small. Fine dining restaurant. Anne from my table goes to the restroom and is gone for a while. Probably 10 minutes? Which for a restaurant is a while. As I'm passing by the restroom he's all PSSSS. Ushering me to the side and hurriedly whispering that he needs to leave through the kitchen because his wife's best friend was sat near he and his date. Who of course, as I learned then and there, is not his wife. We box the remaining courses up and do a walk of shame through the kitchen. He's pissed. She's crying. All while the rest of us are stifling our laughter. He ended up tipping well on the prefix, which was nice. Happened to my poor co-worker. A guy and his date came in for Valentine's Day. They had a great time. Ate a lot of food. Drank a lot of wine. And got along really well with my co-worker who was their server. About 2 months later they come back in and request my co-worker again, who happily says yes to serving them. He goes up and greets them. The guy introduces his wife to him. And my co-worker mentions something about how much he enjoyed serving them on Valentine's Day. They go quiet. Wife gets up and leaves. Guy just lowers his head. Turns out he had brought his mistress in on Valentine's Day. But my co-worker didn't realize he was with a different woman this time around, so didn't think anything of it. We never saw the guy again. Guy was a pose for cheating obviously, but also what an idiot to request the server he had while with the other woman. Couples who are close to the spring breakup trying to save everything on one meaningless holiday dinner. I waited on one of the owners of the restaurant I was working at with his girlfriend and her tween kids. Kinda weird. But probably didn't get a babysitter. He had been dating this woman for a number of months. But it was his first Valentine's Day on a date that wasn't his wife in decades. I don't think he was ready. But he was there to support the business. He broke down crying during dinner and it was heartbreaking. They left early. Nothing too scandalous. But I'd say happy Valentine's Day pretty much to any couple that sat at my tables. Occasionally one of them would say something like "we're not dating." Some of the times, the other person would give a look that pretty much confirmed that they both had very different interpretations of what was going on. There's an episode of 30 Rock where they mention that going to IKEA is a big stress test in relationships. That has nothing on going to a restaurant on the busiest days of the year. Particularly Mother's Day. And Valentine's, especially when it's on a weekend. I'd say 99% of the disasters I've seen have just been normal run-of-the-mill issues where couples realize they have different levels of patience. And one person undoubtedly gets aggravated with the packed restaurant. And their time is ruined.